Hey everyone, my name is Jordan Arell. I am here today with John Adkison, who is going to be suing the federal government for his infant circumcision. And to start this off, I'd like to just ask John to tell us a little bit about himself and how he learned about circumcision.
Okay. Hi, all. So just like Jordan said, I'm John, and I'm 49 years old now, and I have two sons that are intact. I clearly am not. And I started learning about circumcision when the first one was on the way. I kind of went with the assumption that there was a good reason for the procedure and asking questions of it. Until my wife basically insisted that I read an article by Dr. Paul Fleiss that was in the Mothering magazine.
Hmm. And then, so fast forward a little bit, you've obviously learned a lot about it. What has been,
15 years worth.
what was that?
About 15 years worth. That's the age of my oldest son now.
Yeah, and you've done a lot of activism. You have a great blog that I would recommend. We'll actually link that in the show afterwards. But tell us a little bit about what made you kind of decide to pursue this litigation, and yeah, what has been your experience that just made you decide to do this, and how did that process go for you?
Well, I think one of the first things that keyed my mind into the legality or dealing with this from a legal perspective was one of the signs that intentivists or genital autonomy advocates often hold up that says it's child abuse. So I kind of questioned that for myself. It's like, okay, well, if it's child abuse, then why hasn't someone been arrested for this, or why isn't someone suing over this, or whatever? So I started digging, and one thing kind of led to another. I figured, well, why not file a criminal complaint about what happened to me? And so I did exactly that. I went to the sheriff's website in the county that I was born, and filed a criminal complaint explaining when I was born, and that I'm assuming that it was the same day or within a few days later of when I was born that they did this to me, and why I see it as sexual assault, and child abuse, um, and battery, crime, and and I accepted. I left it with that for a while. The sheriff did respond to me, and they did give me a case number, and they told me that they forwarded it on to the naval police, and I never heard anything from the naval police. So I kind of just assumed that that probably got in front of someone there, and they probably laughed at it and probably shared it with everyone else in the office, saying, "Hey, look at this! This guy. He thinks that he can uh, that circumcision is a crime or whatever," and joke about it in the office, and just toss it away or file it away or whatever, and not address the case at all. So that's okay. It's I'm good with laughter and all that, but I figure that it's going to sit there and rattle around in people's brains, and that they're going to at some point, if not right away, question it themselves. Is this something that should be happening? Is it actually legal? I mean, hmm. Where does it say that it's legal? In the legal system, it doesn't actually, and there's plenty of laws that says that it's not legal. So because the doctor does it doesn't mean that it's legal. So a little bit of time went on with that, and then I decided, well, let's look at the financial, civil side of this. I can file a civil suit, and the Navy and like all government agencies have, well, I don't know all, but many government agencies have a way to file a tort claim. So I went out to the naval site and found a way to file a tort claim and did just that. And I did talk to someone in the Navy, and they said, "Well, we don't owe, you're not owed $1 million or whatever, and it's past the 2-year mark and like that." It's like, well, 2 years after it happened to me, I was not, at all capable of, defending myself or fighting for myself about this.
Mhm.
So they said, "Well, this is what you can do. You can file a federal case in the federal courts, and you have so many months to do so after this after this date or whatever." So within that time frame, that they outlined, I did just that. I found the forms to fill out, and looked up ways to sue the federal government. And I was like, okay, I had lots of questions, like, well, how do you go about doing this? And I even tried talking to lawyers like David Llewellyn and all that, and no one wants to take on this case. That's a lawyer or a Jewish doctor or whatever. And like, okay, well, I guess I'm on my own on this, but I'm going to do this.
Hmm.
So I looked up all sorts of things online, and completed a case file and took it into the federal court in downtown Seattle, and filed it. Got a case number and all that, and yeah.
That's fantastic. I always really appreciate when people go out, take the initiative, and actually do something, because it's easy. It's really easy to talk and think about these things and think, well, it'd be nice if someone would do this, or if this person would help do this, then we could do this. But to realize that you have a unique situation because you were born on a military base, and the federal government is in a sense actually responsible for what happens to you, and then to actually go and take action on that
Yeah.
is
Well, let's
really,
just be clear about one thing, Jordan.
yeah.
So the federal government is not responsible for protecting us.
Hmm.
That's been, I think that was not too long ago, very clearly identified that, yeah, you can't sue the federal government for not protecting you.
Hmm.
And what I'm doing is I'm suing the federal government for actually doing the harm,
Hmm.
right? Because it was a federal agency that did so.
Right. And it's essentially an assault charge. Could we go into that a little bit more? What are the different aspects of this charge and why it is, in fact,
Well, assault charges. This is one thing I kind of learned recently from the anti-FGM law case that happened in November.
mhm,
You remember that? Where the federal judge in Michigan struck that law down, the law that
mhm,
was instituted, I think, in 1997,
mhm,
the anti-FGM law. And he struck it down and said that this um, is not constitutional because of the relationship with states, and the states should be um, handling um, anything up to murder, right? Any kind of assault issues, any kind of violence and all is supposed to be handled by the states.
mhm,
So that kind of made things even more interesting when I heard that. It's like, okay, well, so the federal government isn't necessarily beholden to state laws,
mhm,
right? They're only beholden to their own. The jurisdiction. I mean, the whole reason why the sheriff passed the case on to the Navy police is because the sheriff doesn't have jurisdiction on the base, right?
mhm.
Okay, so the military is only beholden to the federal laws, not the state laws,
Right.
right? At least that's the way I'm reading it and understanding it. So I'm strictly going based on the U.S. Constitution,
Mhm.
right? And I think I outlined that in my blog.
Yes. Yeah, the blog is a really good resource for anyone who wants to understand this, because it's really, there's a lot of legal little details, and you kind of go into some of that um, really quite convincingly. I was really impressed when I read this and excited for it. Um, and yeah, um, one of the most important things I think we should really talk about, because it's something a lot of people ask, is, like, um, what about statute of limitations? Like, it's been so long. Obviously, you can't sue the doctor or whatever because it's past that, and so how could that possibly, if the doctor's even still alive or whatever? So,
Yeah.
what exactly is that whole thing with how how you can still make this lawsuit happen?
Well, so there's this thing called equitable tolling,
Hmm.
which allows the statute of limitation clock to start at a different time,
Hmm.
but you have to have some sort of something to back that up, right? So in my case, what I'm arguing is that the equitable tolling should only start after I become aware of, number one, what was done to me and how it affects me, the physical medical side of it, right?
Hmm.
And number two, the legal implications of that, right? So of course, at 2 years old, I absolutely knew nothing. And even at age 18, when I graduated high school, I still did not know anything because our public schools in the United States do not cover the anatomy of the genitalia. It's
Hmm.
just penis and scrotum and the reproductive stuff, right? The vagina. Okay, that's about all they're going to cover. They're not going to. They don't go into the details about the clitoris, the clitoral hood, the labia, the the foreskin, the inner mucosa, the ridged band, the penile glands. They don't get into any of that detail. And
Right.
even, I mean, if they even just glossed over it a little bit, it would have left me wondering. Okay, so a natural penis is like that, and mine is like this, and it would have at least got me questioning it. But no, what I went forward with was the myths, basically, that so many people believe that it's done for good medical reasons,
Hmm.
right? And so I didn't question it. I just assumed, I trusted doctors. I've trusted doctors and dentists way too much in my life. And I think a lot of people can relate with me on this. It's like doctors are people and they make mistakes too. And there's plenty of history that proves that medical professionals do make big mistakes. I mean, think of bloodletting and the thing where they stick a hole in your head.
Yeah.
Lobotomies, yeah, that's it.
Oh, yeah.
Lots of things that doctors did wrong in the past, and there's, as far as I'm concerned, this is one of the things that they're doing wrong. So, where was I going with this? So anyway, okay. So the whole statute of limitations thing. So okay. So even at age 18, I didn't know. And as far as I'm concerned, the federal government is partly at fault for this. I mean, federal government does have an influence on what is taught in public schools. And I
Hmm.
did go to public school, so I can't blame you can't blame a private school for not teaching me this. This is public schools that are funded by our government.
Hmm.
That's partly controlled by the federal government. And so I didn't even really consider the issue until I was 35 years old and was becoming a dad. And then again, that Paul Fleiss article got in front of me, and that started me down the humongous rabbit hole that this whole topic.
Yeah. Yeah, and we probably don't have to go too much into every reason why circumcision is bad here. There's a lot of videos on my channel and on your blog, and
Yeah.
watch the film American Circumcision. There's, or Eric Klopper's Play Sex and Circumcision. There's so many
Yeah.
different wonderful resources about how
There's a
circumcision
mountain
is
out there. Other stuff.
it's, as I say in one of my videos, it is penile lobotomy essentially. It's like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
removing an essential part of your penis,
Yeah.
for
I
no
never heard
reason.
of it put that way. That's a good one. Penile lobotomy.
Yep, pretty much. So, uh, anyways, I'd like to also go into yeah. So it basically what happens, or the reason that this is um, an issue. It violates your certain constitutional rights.
Mm-hmm.
So, could you talk a little bit about those rights and why, or how those rights are violated in your view?
Okay, so I think there's like the Second Amendment and there's the Ninth Amendment. So every human has an inalienable right to physical integrity and bodily autonomy. I can get more specific, but I believe that the Ninth Amendment of the Constitution of the United States of America covers this right as a non-enumerated right.
Mhm.
I also believe that every human has the right to defend one's own body, intended in the Second Amendment of the Constitution, which is the gun law and all that. But that's the idea, is that everyone has the right to defend one's own body. Well, I couldn't defend my own body when I was an infant.
Mhm.
Um, let's see here. And every law-abiding citizen should be safe from torture, and the action taken that is addressed in this complaint not only inflicted torture during the act, it also inflicted torture during their life and continues to inflict torture. So, as you and I both know, it's knowing that a part of us is missing because someone decided to cut it away without a good reason is really hard to accept, right?
Mhm.
And especially as you learn more and more about the values of that body part. But for me, I think I could get over it. I could accept it if it wasn't still happening to thousands of children every single day
Mhm.
all over the world. And I'm not just talking about males here. So that tortures my mind. That tortures my heart. Every morning I wake up thinking, what else can I do to educate people about the harms of non-therapeutic, non-consensual genital cutting practices?
Yes. Yep. As do many of us in this I mean, that is the anti-activist movement, right? It's
Yeah.
uh, experiencing this experience of genital mutilation. Many of us, either us or our partners or our children, some people who only find out after they've already circumcised their children and realize that they actually mutilated their children's genitals. But it can be quite traumatic, even just learning about it. But that,
Mm-hmm.
in addition to having had it done to you, it's like if I talk sometimes. It's like if rape was like accepted as like a good thing that we just like do to like women or men or whatever, and it's just like that's fine. That would make rape all the worse because right now it's like everyone understands it's a really bad thing, and so there's at least that comfort that people support you and understand that you're traumatized, but
Mm-hmm.
knowing that no one, that people you love and care about, maybe even actually still think that what happened to you is a good thing and they're going to do it to their own children. It's really it adds a layer of feeling completely unsafe and completely in a world where your trauma is not accepted and is invalidated. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's my
And,
experience.
and and that I imagine Jonathan Conte was having that experience, when he decided to take his own life.
Hmm.
He even said it himself on the American Circumcision documentary, interview, that this is really hard work because it is hard to get through to people about the harm of this. And even if the government didn't want to reward me personally, I don't really. I want to be rewarded so I can take the money and go educate people about this. But I think the federal government owes the country re-education on
Hmm.
this. They should spend a ton of money to get the knowledge that people are deserved about this topic out there.
Hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. It's true. We And that's I think part of what's great about this lawsuit is it really puts that responsibility. And what is great about both pursuing litigation or legislation too and trying to change laws is that it is taking this back to the government, who's really supposed to, in this case, not harm you, but of course at the state level and other levels also, it's supposed to protect us from harm. And so it's really important to have that element where we're creating more awareness, whether that's through creating media or addressing people directly at the government level or at any other level. I think that's one of the great results of this will be just the awareness raising aspect of it. But one other aspect, of course, is the financial side. So I'd like to ask you, what exactly are you seeking for financial remuneration for this? Remuneration, you say that right? What is your goal, and why is that important?
So I'm asking for $1 million. Nice and even number. It has to go over the seven digit mark for two reasons. One is to get attention to this issue. I think that if we're asking for a much smaller number, then people in the government at higher levels won't do anything about this. I don't know that. I think that it's going to take a big number for the generals or whoever to say, "Hey, stop doing this in our flipping hospital, people. You dumb doctors. You're violating the human rights of these babies. Stop it. I'm ordering you to not do that anymore." So I don't think it's going to get onto their minds if it's not a big enough number.
Mm.
And then second of all, I intend to take the money and stick it into I think I said a 501c3 earlier, but I think there's a 501c2 or 501b3 or something like that, a nonprofit. I'll probably officially start the Genital Autonomy Society as an official nonprofit. I've got the website, genitalautonomysociety.org, which is a great place to register if you believe that everyone has the right to the genitals that they were born with. Please register there. But the plan is that I would take the money and stick it into that organization, and that organization would obviously pay my salary so I can pay my bills, and then be able to dedicate all my time for the next 15 years. You take $1 million and divide by 15, that pretty well covers a fair salary. I'll probably end up spending a good chunk of money of that doing other things other than paying myself, but still, $1 million over 15 years is not a ton of money, right? So that's where I'll put it. That way I can avoid getting taxed on the money and actually put as much of it to good use as possible to educate people about genital autonomy.
That's great. I really salute that and appreciate that. And I know, I think probably most of the people in the activist movement would also commit all this money back to the cause immediately, because they care about it so much. And I think one other thing that comes to my mind is, I know if someone was paying me for the suffering I've experienced because of circumcision, like $1 million wouldn't even be enough, honestly. It would have to be significantly more than that for me to accept it and be like, yeah, I'll give up the best part of my dick for that. Like, it would have to be, maybe we're talking like at least like 10 trillion. I don't know. Maybe a little more.
Yeah.
I mean, even with just 100 million, I could probably easily fund regeneration of it. So that might be worth it. But
fund forging.
Yeah. So maybe I'd consider that, but yeah. It really, it makes sense to ask for at least $1 million. And yeah, I'm trying to think if there's any other questions I have, or if there's anything else you want to share about this lawsuit that you think is important.
Well, I'd love it if people would go look at the blog article and read it and think about it and give me any kind of feedback they have on it, any ideas or whatever. I appreciate it. If you're officially a lawyer, then um, please be careful, because if I get official legal advice from an official lawyer, then the judge might throw me out saying, "Well, you can't be pro se if you got lawyers backing you up here."
Right.
So yeah, I know of some lawyers. I mean, we all know, you and I already know Steven Svoboda and David Llewellyn, and Jonathan Geisler, who has, I guess he's a juris doctor. But I do know some lawyers that are going to school too, that are in the movement, that have asked me about this and talked a little bit about it. So yeah, I definitely would appreciate support, even if it's just a rah rah.
Yeah, I'm supporting you 100%. That's why I'm doing this podcast, obviously, and extremely excited for this. And I will put in the comments or in the description below a link to your blog so people can check that out and read the post. It's not too long, but it really explains this in a way that helped me to see, like, wow, this is awesome. And yeah, I hope anyone who's watching today might be excited about this, as well as inspired, because uh, John's just an ordinary everyday guy. I'm just an ordinary everyday guy, and it's just deciding that you want to do something about this, and then figuring out what to do. Again, we have no prior legal experience, or at least legal training, but you just go online and figure out Google what to do, whatever you want to do, and figure it out. Like, it's that simple.
Cornell has a lot of good stuff.
Cornell, yeah, good good school. So yeah, I think that's all we have for today. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for joining me, John. This has been a wonderful conversation.
Absolutely.
And follow the blog also for just more information on this. John will continue to update us on this process as it goes in the next months. So talk to y'all later. Thanks for watching.